Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to another edition of Niger Innis Presents The Trump Revolution, a part of the TvAbraham network. What comes to your mind when you hear the words Muslim Brotherhood? It is one of the most dangerous terrorist or ideologies and organizations in the world. Its stated mission is to create an international caliphate to displace Western civilization. It was started at the right before the Great Depression in 1928 by an imam and teacher, and initially started out as a nonviolent pushing of an ideology, but it quickly devolved in the 1960s to a virulent form of radicalism of Islamism, which I distinguish that from the study and affection for Islam itself. They are two different phenomenons. And it reached its peak in 2011 when it actually used the democratic process to elect Morsi president of Egypt. That did not last for long. The people rebelled against him, and the army had to step in. And really, the cause of them not stepping of them stepping in was that the Brotherhood under Morsi or any of its factions had not uh, turn its back from its violent militant past and was going to use the governmental power of Egypt, which is substantial, to implement its violent vision for the future. Well, we want to talk about the fundamental question: should the United States follow Jordan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Russia, and other countries and banning the Muslim Brotherhood? And what are the legal implications of getting it done? And what are the legal repercussions of getting it done? And I can't think of a better person to have on today to discuss this issue than Judge Herb Dodell, who brings an extensive background as a prosecutor, defense attorney, civil litigator on both sides of the aisle, with experience across all facets of business and litigation. He's presided over more than 10,000 cases and tried upwards of 99 jury trials, both civil and criminal, in state and federal courts. He has a podcast where he approaches each issue as a case. I love that. And where he serves as the judge, guiding listeners through a careful examination of the facts, historical context, and legal principles, all while adhering to the rules of evidence and standards of credibility. Thank you, Judge, Your Honor, for coming on with us again. We had a little glitch over the weekend, but we have corrected that. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you very much. In preparation for this interview, I'm glad we had the weekend to do it, by the way.
Absolutely.
I actually did some legal research because that we're going to look this from a legal standpoint.
Yes.
You really need some basis. You took a little of my thunder because you gave me the bio that I was going to give, but it works out. We'll start with 1928. But what's interesting is right now there are two U.S. senators, plus Secretary of State Rubio and a lot of other political figures that have sponsored a bill which would declare Hamas to be a terrorist organization and obviously recognized as such with its financial and legal ramifications. That one should pass, but there is a group of anti-Zionist people in the Congress like Bernie Sanders and AOC and others who oppose any recognition of anything favorable to Israel, pretty much anti-Israel and almost everything.
Don't
But
have a knee-jerk reaction to anything that is positive for Israel. They must be against.
well, the two senators, and they are entitled to recognition, is Senator Cotton and
Of Arkansas?
yeah, and the senator, conservative senator from Texas.
Senator Cruz. That's right.
That's right. Senator Cruz has been a very, very favorable advocate for most pro-Israel legislation and has been recognizing what's been going on with the sense of reality, which is a whole lot different than what we're getting from the press. And then, of course, everybody recognizes, or should recognize, that the media is substantially biased and you don't get the facts as they should be. You get the facts as spin.
Well, that's exactly why you have your podcast and why we have our program here is to get past that screen of essentially a left-wing censorship.
Well, it's getting more left wing as we go. I'm not a political person. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm pretty much a neutral. But I do believe in one basic concept of the law, which is things have to be based on evidence. And there's a definition of evidence. And one of the definitions includes relevance and lack of bias and things of that nature. So if I was to look at the issues as a judge would look at them, I wouldn't have any problem at all in making a determination as to what really is going on. Now, there's now a new cable station. I think it's called News Network that finally has found its way toward the center. They have representatives from both sides, which I do too on my podcast. You get a representative from both sides presenting their issues.
Yes.
You go to CNN, you're going to get the left, the spin on the left. The facts are what they want you to believe that they are, which they may not be. And then, of course, you got Newsmax on the right, and it's probably the same thing. And that's why, if I was to ever make a recommendation to anybody about anything, it's don't believe what you read in the cable, and certainly don't buy into a lot of the junk that's on social media.
Get a second or third opinion.
well, if you read some of the stuff that's on there, I usually don't have the time to fool around with it, but you can see a lot of the comments how ridiculous the perceptions are from so many people. I mean, there's a basic inherent underlying anti-Semitism that goes along with it. And I thought it was very interesting. Bill Maher said that 100,000, I think, or maybe even 1 million Christians have been killed in Sudan. And yes, this is going on.
And Nigeria as well. It's a wipeout, a very purposeful targeting of Christians in Nigeria. And of course, we've got the bloody civil war in Sudan. Let me steer us back, Your Honor, to the brotherhood question.
Sure.
What are the, I don't know, I should have, and I have not, and I will read that bill in its entirety. But what are the essential legal ramifications if this bill should get passed by Senator Cruz and Senator Cotton?
Well, I haven't read the bill, and I'm sure there's going to be many amendments to basically achieve the purpose of what most people want. And I once asked a friend of mine, a late friend of mine, who was a psychiatrist, I asked him for a projection or a prediction for something. And he said to me, Herb, you want to know what the other side is going to do? Ask one question, just one. I said, I'm certainly interested in what the question is. He says, just ask what's in their best interest. That's all you need to know. What are they going to do? And if you look at the world demographic, you can pretty much predict what some of these countries are going to do. And it usually comes down to a word I use all the time. It comes down to the moolah. I'm not talking about the imams. I'm talking about the money.
Talking about the money. During Watergate, follow the money.
Well, you're absolutely right. The fact of the matter is, on almost every quasi-political decision made worldwide, it's going to come down to the same thing: money and power.
Well, let's go exactly to that very pertinent and important question, which is what is the other side going to do? What do they see in their own interest? Because let's look at the broader landscape. The Muslim Brotherhood has operated in virtually every Middle Eastern country, very overtly in some cases. I mean, even getting to the presidency in Egypt, to covertly and involved in assassinations, involved in various terrorist operations. But because of our good friends over in Israel and the determination of Donald Trump, the militant Islam entity at large, not just the Brotherhood, but the variety of its cousins or legs of the octopus, if you will, have been, they've had a pitch thrown at their heads. The Iranian mullahs have been pushed, their nuclear program has been pushed back. Hezbollah has essentially been wiped out in Lebanon. Of course, Assad was moved away from power by Syrians in the Syrian civil war. And as I said, Egypt, UAE already have outlawed the Muslim Brotherhood. So, what is their next move, Judge? And it's unfair of me to ask you this question, but I have to ask it, and maybe it's just something for us to ponder. What is their next move? What is their next manifestation?
Well, I'd be presumptuous to try to predict what's going to happen anywhere, but you get a pretty good indication based on what they're doing and saying. Now, I suspect, and I haven't read the bill as I just said, I suspect it will cut off any economic considerations that any of these countries have that recognize Hamas and are doing business with them. That's the only way you're ever going to control anything is by controlling the money. Like you said, follow the money.
Yes.
And the reality is the charter, Hamas's charter, which I have read, by the way, several times, is pretty clear. It says, wipe out the Jews, period. The end of the story. There's not a whole lot to negotiate. If your enemy is saying,
I know you know this, but let's inform our audience that Hamas is a not so distant cousin, more like a nephew of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, they basically came from the Muslim Brotherhood because people really do not truly understand what some of the issues are in the Middle East. The fact of the matter is there was historically, and this is confirmed by Alan Dershowitz, who was on my podcast several times, as a matter of fact.
Good man.
If you look at the law, which is what I look at, the facts are going to get spinned by whoever's presenting them. That's what it is. So you have to look at the reality. The reality is that Palestine was never a state of any kind. It was formed basically by the Palestinian Liberation Organization in the mid-1960s. And the same thing for Palestinian people. It was never really Palestinian people. It were groups of basically clans, which still exist, by the way, in Gaza. And these clans then were referred to as Palestinians. So when they talk about occupation, that's ridiculous. If you look at what occupation means, it means taking something that doesn't belong to you. And that's not exactly the historical facts. In 1948, the United Nations, as a body, unanimously set up a plan for the creation of countries in the Middle East. You know, there was no such country as Jordan. There was no real country as Saudi Arabia. It was created by a group of people sitting in London drawing maps. I mean, that's really the way it went. And to see some of the complaints, the reality is free Palestine really means kill all the Jews. I mean, it's
let's talk about Palestine. And of course, President Trump is just recently had a tremendous victory and success, I would say, for the region and for most, if not all, of the people of the region, and his establishing a ceasefire in Gaza and a 20-point plan to essentially lay a roadmap, if you will, for peace and prosperity and the expansion of the Abraham Accords. What do you think? We have a few minutes left, Your Honor. What do you see in terms of the truce holding up and in terms of this roadmap to peace and prosperity in the region?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can use history because you know that old expression, If you ignore history, it's doomed to repeat itself. And if you look at what we've seen for the last couple thousand years, it's somewhat predictable as to where we're going. And I mentioned Sudan and you mentioned Nigeria. The fact of the matter is, why isn't there any press coverage? Do you know why? You have any idea why nobody knows about it? Or every now and again you'll hear a squib here and there from somebody like Bill Maher. You know why you don't hear about it?
Well, it's not politically correct. It doesn't go along with the politically correct narrative
No, there's
of the
no Jews
United
with,
States and Israel being the big and the little bully of the region. It goes
well,
against that narrative, which is hostile to the West.
well, Iran calls the United States the great Satan and Israel the lesser. But the fact of the matter is, the reason you don't hear about some of these events that are taking place with the murder of Christians is there's no Jews involved. It's only when the Jews are involved in some way, tangential or otherwise, that it gets attention. It's part of the same program. It's blame the Jews for everything. Now, that's where it's going, because if you look at the charter, it says not one inch, I'm paraphrasing it. It says that not 1 inch of, quote, Palestine can be given to anybody other than the Palestinians. That's what it says. It's in the charter. It says that. And it also talks about all the Jews should be eliminated. It says that in plain language. Maybe a translation slightly different, but I doubt it. And so the reality is, who do you negotiate with when your enemy has said the ultimate, irreversible is your destruction? I mean, it makes no sense. As far as predicting, as an historian, I was a history and political science major in college. The reality here is that these guys are going to keep on going. And I don't believe the ceasefire is going to hold, personally, because they don't want it to hold. They're getting recognition. Now, so you see, the creation really was in the 1960s by Yasser Arafat. And what's interesting is, after he died, a suspicious death, by the way, in Paris, he found out he was worth $2 billion. How did he get all that money? It's because the Palestinian Authority has been so corrupt for so long that it's in their best interest to keep the show going, so they can keep on taking the moolah. And the reality is, I am an optimist by heart. I've always seen the glass as half full, always, with anything I've ever done, really. But it's hard to be an optimist when you're looking at the history and you know what they're going to be doing. Look, American colleges and campuses, people walking around with signs from the river to the sea. They have no idea what's really involved here. They don't read anything other than what they've been told, and they get spoon-fed by contributions from countries like Qatar, who basically give billions of dollars to American universities in order to be able to have them appoint professors that espouse their view. So I'm not optimistic about whether this.
Well, I hear you, Your Honor. Let's close on this thought of mine, and something that I'm sure you may share. I talked about how the Muslim Brotherhood and that ideology of Islamism replaced Arab nationalism, which had been the dominant entity in the region. Golda Meir once said, you know, Palestinian people will start making progress when they start thinking about how they can raise their own children to be prosperous and promote prosperity, and stop raising them to just thinking about Jewish children and killing Jewish children.
Well, if you look,
Let us hope, Your Honor, that that is a future potential Palestinian or Arab leadership in the region that would be helpful and preserve peace for the region, expand the Abraham Accords, and really make the Middle East less of an eyesore of violence and more as a shining example of what peace and prosperity can bring to the people of the region. Thank you so much, Judge, for being our guest on today. It's a fascinating conversation. We'd love to have you on again. And this concludes another episode of Niger Innis Presents the Trump Revolution, a part of the TvAbraham Network. And I'm going to sign off as I always do, harking back to my father's words, who said, Niger, always use TLC when you get involved in activism or you do media. Always use TLC. And he did not mean, Judge, he did not mean tender loving care. He meant truth, logic, and courage. And that's the foundation of Niger Innis Presents the Trump Revolution and the foundation of the entire TvAbraham network. Judge, thank you again for being our guest today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, number one, and forgive me for being somewhat biased, which I am. And you make a great presentation, so I want to thank you for calling it
my
what
pleasure.
It is. Okay.
You are, as they say in media, you are a pip.
Whatever that means, I accept.
It means you got a lot of punch
Okay.
and strong opinions, which is always welcome on the TvAbraham network. All the best to you. You. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will watch to see if some of the predictions, hopes, fears come to fruition in the next few weeks, months, years in the middle.
Follow the money. That's all you have to do. Follow the money.
Very good. Bye-bye now.
Bye.